Hello, my name is John Batchelor, and I'm with the Franchise Innovation Group, and we're here today to talk a little bit about franchising, specifically how to build your franchise system, and the title of this session is Building Your Franchise System A to Z. The undertaking of the development or embracing a franchise system can seem really daunting to people. Franchising, I always say, is not for the faint of heart. It's for people who truly have a successful business model and want to introduce that business model to others within the marketplace so that they can really see some tangible improvement in their own lives. So this is for the excellent entrepreneur who wants to establish a real beachhead in the marketplace. The way we build franchise systems is, and it's so important that you do it right, is it all starts with a foundation. That is, having all the essential components of your building blocks for your franchise system really addressed up front. Once those are addressed, then you move on to building your franchise system, and that's where you start putting the nuts and bolts together, and that includes things like FDDs, franchise disclosure documents, FAs, but most importantly, it's about franchise owner care. How are you going to take care of the owners when you have people that sign up and be part of your franchise system? How are you going to treat them? How are you going to educate them? How are you going to explain your policies and your processes to them effectively? So that's all part of what we call the building phase. And finally, the third phase is the development and support phase. During this phase, our focus is on helping people grow their business. In this case, it's a franchise system. How do you bring new entrants into your franchise system, and how do you take care of those people? So once they've signed the deal, how do you make sure that they're happy, healthy, and prosperous? So with that, let's talk a little bit about the foundation. The foundation is so important. These are the essential elements required of a potential franchisor. They're things that seem fairly common sense on the face of it, but it's really about understanding, your company, your story, and that's where it starts with. The brand story is so important. It really is the way you communicate to the world what the essence of your franchise system is about and what you stand for. In the foundation, it's also very important to understand the state of the industry because, frankly, you need to know where the industry is moving and be able to explain to people how you're moving along with that industry, and specifically how you're making a difference maybe differently than the other players within that industry. Marketplace positioning is also very important as part of the foundation, understanding your specific position. And we always work with clients to do a financial review to really look at the underlying financials, to have a specific chart of accounts developed that will help them in terms of later on helping the franchisee manage their operations. In the foundation also, we look at competitive benchmarking. Competitive benchmarking is very important, and that's where you stand against the potential franchise competitors. That doesn't mean that you're looking at the competitor down the street or in your own neighborhood or back of the woods. This is about looking at national competitors or regional competitors who offer franchises for sale in your same space, in your same vertical. And it's very important that you understand the franchise fees, how your competitors go about training, franchise territory size needs to be addressed, and any of the requirements set forth by the franchisors. Franchisors explain all the things that they do in something that's called the franchise disclosure document. And at this point of your search, you're probably fairly familiar with the FDD, but it does a great job, and it's of laying out a franchisor's franchise system. And it looks at all the fees, it looks at all the requirements, And it's all governed by the Federal Trade Commission in terms of the scope and breadth of what's included in an FDD. So being able to obtain franchisors, your other competitors, potential competitors, FDDs, is a good first step to understanding, how you're going to enter this marketplace and how you're going to potentially configure your new franchise system. As with anything, costs are really important. So we always focus on what are the competition looking at, what are their cost structure, and then as we build a franchise system, we take that into account because we don't want to be, too far above market either in our costs or in any of the expectations that we lay out to the potential franchise owner. A third part of the foundation program is the initial viability analysis. And with our clients, one of the things that we do is we look at things like revenue projections, we perform break-even analysis and projected profit margins. All those are important in terms of financial indicators to truly assess whether or not the concept has the potential to franchise. I get calls all the time from people who want to franchise, and many people believe that franchising is a way to overcome some of maybe the deficiencies in their business, and in order to grow their business, even their current business, overcome some of the severe deficiencies. Well, that's never the case. Franchising is for the strong. It's never for the weak. And it's really important that you have good financials and good projections in order to be able to take it to the market and say, yeah, this is what you can expect based upon our past performance in terms of your future performance. So that's why it's so important to get the financials right. We always do a very detailed operational expense analysis. So we look at all the components based upon what the actuals were for the business, and then we typically put those into a new chart of accounts. And the new chart of accounts has an eye for putting ourselves in the franchisee's shoes. Other things that you need to look at in terms of initial viability is the ideal owner. Who is it that you're trying to attract? What are their temperament? What are their characteristics? And frankly, what are you looking at in terms of someone with financial viability? What's the minimum that they need to have in terms of capital, and the minimum minimum experience they need to have, and the types of experience they need to have. Lastly, looking at territory, it's really important to understand what the scope and breadth of an individual's franchisee's territory will be. And a good way to do that is to look at your own territory, your own backyard, and see, and make the analysis in terms of, how does this translate into a different city, a different area of the country. So that's all about building the basic foundation of your franchise business. After assessing the foundation and really, understanding where you stand, then it makes sense to start building your franchise system. The building phase is frankly pretty fun. That's what we do day in and day out. And it starts with the development of the franchise program. And most people think, well, a program is an FDD, a franchise disclosure document, and the related legal documents. Well, it's a lot more than that. The franchise program describes, everything about the franchise offering, how you go to market, as a franchisee, how you need to get set up to go to market, all the fees and the cost structures based upon your entry into the new market, and we take it very, very we take a very exhaustive approach to doing that. Building the franchise system, when you're building it, it's about building a system for someone else. And when it comes to the franchise program, one of the things that we always do is we always partner up with a legal firm to do the final review of any legal documents. following that, it really is about developing the training programs and protocols, and it starts with identifying your key processes, and those are, the sequence set of activities that really define how you do business. And most companies will have maybe anywhere from 50 to 100 processes, but of those processes, only about anywhere from 10 to 20 are really critical for operation, meaning they need to be codified, they need to be written down, and specific instruction sets need to be developed. That's the way we approach things. We develop very exhaustive training manuals, and those training manuals take you through the individual steps of the process, step by step. So if you've got a restaurant and you have employees coming in the morning to open up that restaurant, well, you better have an opening process, you better have a closing process, and it better, if you've got a kitchen, or if you're a service industry and you've got some protocols in terms of reaching out to clients early in the morning, those are things that need to be addressed, and they need to be addressed and codified in such a way that other people can follow them. And that's what we focus on. We've got process engineers that help our clients to develop those key processes in a way that make them easily understandable to outside audiences. In this step, we develop a full franchisee training curriculum, and that's so important for a potential franchisor to do. We rely on on-the-job training, and we use a lot of on-the-job training curriculums for our clients, and that's nothing more than taking those key processes that we develop and putting them on paper, but then having a testing protocol that ensures that everyone that follows those key processes, whether it's your franchise owner or the people that work for them, that they understand what's expected in terms of the job. And that means that they understand how to follow those processes and follow them consistently. That's the important thing. And many franchisors, especially small companies that start out, they miss this as an important step. I don't know how many times I've seen franchisors that come to us and they're new, they've been around for 2 to 3 years, and we ask to see their operations manuals, and it's 30 pages. And that just, it's not a question of volume, it's a question of completeness. Because in my mind, and I say this often, a franchise owner that's successful is a franchise owner who is competent. And competence comes from confidence, and confidence comes from education and training. That's why it's absolutely important for individuals to have a true understanding of the work that needs to be done, and that is the key processes. Employee on-the-job training is simply a way and a method to evaluate, whether your training's stuck or not, and so important. Another aspect to building your franchise system is the supply chain. Whether you want to call this procurement or supply chain, it really is so essential to developing a franchise system, because one of the things as a franchisor that you bring to the table, or should bring to the table, is sourcing opportunities, and frankly leverage sourcing opportunities. So that means that you've already done the hard work in establishing contractual relationships with suppliers that will help that franchisee be successful. And along with that comes the technology portion. And the technology is that you're providing the systems and the supply chain for them to operate the business and operate it efficiently and effectively. So for our clients, we typically will give them access to our extensive retinue of suppliers, and we have suppliers from across different disciplines, from technology to insurance to phones to cleaning services. We've got it all, and we look at that as being important, because what you're doing is you're putting all those the supply chain partners in the hands of your franchisee and helping them to truly, take a lot of the worry, take a lot of the, guesswork out of the game. Our whole focus is providing, as part of building the franchise system, you've got a franchise system. It's built in. Everything's built in. And when we look at the supply chain, we also look at outsourcing solutions, and that's the last thing on this list. And so many companies that we work with, they do some things internally, and we identify, after working with them, that there are always some outsourcing opportunities. Maybe not in every area, but the key is to let the owner focus on what's important for the business. So and typically that is the client care and employee issues. Take a lot of the back office stuff off the table. With most of the companies that we work with, our clients, we've taken that back office and we've either developed technology solutions or brought in outsourced partners to manage the back office for them at a nominal fee, and it truly helps the company, helps the franchisee in terms of focusing on what's important. A great example is, do you want your franchisees with their nose in QuickBooks all the time, or would you rather have them out there, developing, growing the business? And we've taken the stance that they have to understand their cost structure. They have to understand the key financial metrics of the business. So we have firms out there that's what they do. They help that franchisee understand at any given point in time where they stand financially. But the franchisee doesn't have to spend all their time on the QuickBooks, on the back office. The focus is on growing, building their business, and keeping employee morale high. So those are all parts of the important items that you look for in terms of building a franchise system, and supply chain and technology is absolutely crucial to any franchise system. The next area that we're going to look at is development and support. And development and support is absolutely critical, because this is how you grow. This is how you grow your franchise system, and it starts with franchise sales. And franchise sales has a lot of different components, and it's definitely not for people who don't know franchising. One thing I'll tell everybody, if you don't have experience in terms of franchise sales, don't go it alone. Get a trusted partner to help you with franchise sales, because there are a lot of potential pitfalls and precipices that you can fall off of. Our goal when we do franchise sale is early on to develop the lead generation structures that are needed to reach your target audience. That is, in the foundation program, we've identified who that target audience is of potential franchise owners. Now it's a question of what types of lead generation techniques are you going to use to go out and reach them. And once you've reached them, how are you going to explain your specific offering to them? And that's where the sales process comes in. We use structured sales processes that are proven. The processes are frankly a test of the potential franchisee's ability to even follow a process. But the sales process is generated to vet that candidate, to truly understand whether or not they can carry your brand. And that's so important, because in most of the franchise systems I'll say all the franchise systems that we work with, it's so important to get the right owner. It's absolutely important. And just because someone has the financial means or wherewithal to buy a franchise doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to be a good franchisee. There are a whole host of things that have to be looked at, and you're looking for someone who falls in love with your brand. And that's why we focus so much on brand positioning and brand messaging, because in the sales process we want to find people who frankly are followers of your brand. They love what you do. They love what you stand for. And when we develop franchise systems, I tell people all the time, you know, the marketing is absolutely key, and brand positioning is key. And to do effective brand positioning for a franchise system, in my mind, it takes almost a building of a cult mentality. You want people who truly, live and breathe your brand, because those are the people who are going to take that brand message out to the community, and it's for the love of the brand that they're going to do it, because they're believers. And that's really what we're looking at, here is how do you find the right people to carry your brand into different markets. Once you find those people, now it's a question of managing them, and we use a pipeline management process where we track people, where they are in the pipeline, where they are in terms of that sales process. And so, not everyone moves fast. Some people move slow, some people move fast, some, all sorts of personalities out there and all sorts of considerations. So the key is how do you keep on top of all these people that are in the pipeline? We do that through pipeline management, and that means that we want to be, we want to achieve top of mind awareness with all the people that are in that pipeline, every day and every week. And there's a fine line here, because you don't want to, reach out to people, too often, or you'll scare them off. So we've got there's a scientific way we go about, touching people to really keep them on top of what's happening with a particular brand and keeping them interested in that brand. Finally, the prospect interview and selection process, so important. Again, just because someone has the financial wherewithal doesn't be a good franchisee. It's a good indicator of whether they get into the mix. But as far as being a good franchisee, no. So we use some tools, we use interview techniques, and there are a series of interviews that we conduct in our processes that are informal. People don't even know that they're interviews. And the reason for that is because you want to make it a very friendly thing, but you also want to make sure that you're bringing the right people in. And by having a number of different vetting stages, it makes it much easier for you to get to know that client, get to know that potential franchisee. And one of the things I always tell potential franchisors is, when you go and identify prospects, always do a background investigation, always do referrals. So get some referrals and always follow up in terms of those referrals, because franchising is a marriage. It's a marriage of typically 10 or more years between the franchisor and the franchisee. Get to know those people, get to know their personality, their characteristics, how they react to certain situations. And that takes a little bit of time, but that time spent up front doing that is well worth it, because it will potentially allow you to avoid significant problems on the backside. And I've seen issues when franchisors just take first come, first serve, and it's those are the franchise systems that we walk into that typically need a lot of help. So get to know people and get to know whether or not they truly are proponents of your brand. That's the key. The next step is development and support, and what we call onboarding and quick start. The onboarding and quick start is absolutely critical to a franchisee's ultimate success. And when we do quick starts, we work with our franchisor clients to work with their franchisees to get them ready to open their doors. And that's really important, whether you're a restaurant or a service industry or any type of franchise out there. It's absolutely important to get open and operating quickly, not too quickly. And what I mean by that is you don't want to forget things. So you don't want to enter the market, unprepared. That's why we have the Quick Start program. And the Quick Start program can last anywhere from just a few weeks to almost 2 months. And that's helping that franchise owner become become aware of all the things that they need to do to get their business up and running, from the site selection, if you have a site, to build out, to business licensing, all the different things that are required to get your business up and running. And those things have to be thought up front. And what we do is we work in the Quick Start program. Our franchisors, we've designed a Quick Start program that allows them to work with the franchisees in a very structured way to take them literally through about a 15-page checklist of all the different things they need to think of, and there is a curriculum around that. And that's so important because, if a franchise owner can open their doors without a hitch and open them early, boy, that's the holy grail. That's what we're after. So our whole focus in working with our clients is to say, hey, listen, you really have to be focused on getting that person open, and open as early as possible so that they can start getting some positive cash flow. And that's what it's about. The buy-in to a franchise is, as I always tell people, it's a hockey stick curve. There's a lot of investment that goes out for many, many months in terms of initial fees, and then the longer they wait, the more cash they're burning through. You want to make that hockey stick as short as possible so that you can start generating revenue to overcome the investment. And a good franchise or a good franchise system will provide that service, like an onboarding, that really helps that franchisee get up and running quickly, which is so, so important. And the next stage after Quick Start is training. All the training program that we develop for our clients, for the franchisors in the building phase, this is where it comes into play. And that means that after they've gone through the onboarding process, then the real work begins in terms of typically a combination of classroom and on-site training. And it's different for different types of franchisors. It can be a week, 2 weeks, and multiple weeks on-site in terms of practical training, down to just a few days, depending on the scope and breadth of the franchise system. But the key there is that you have to have franchise owners that feel competent or confident, because competence, as I said earlier, competence is based upon competence, or competence is based on confidence, sorry, and confidence comes from being properly educated and trained in the franchise system. So our whole thing is to provide first-class training and making people feel very, very confident about the work that needs to be performed. In addition to the classroom, practical, and on-site training, we also focus on continuing education programs and to reinforce the concepts in the business. It's truly important to understand that the learning process doesn't end with the end of the formal training. There has to be a culture that's developed within the franchise system that's focused on continuing education, because things in any vertical, in any market, never stay stagnant. That just doesn't happen. So you have to anticipate what changes are being made in the market, and as the franchisor, you need to keep abreast of those changes so that you can respond accordingly with your franchisees. And lastly, it's the support systems and programs. It's truly important to have a franchisee care program that allows you to reach out to those franchisees on a routine basis to provide support, encouragement, and information that they need to feel good and confident about their abilities and their ability specifically to run your business. And education and support doesn't end. It's something that needs to be, the core building block of future growth for the franchise system. So today, what we've covered is, franchising, how to build your franchise from A to Z. There's a lot of components that are involved when you franchise your business. And I want to say again, it's not for the faint of heart. And I would encourage everyone, don't go it alone. Find a trusted partner that you can partner with, and hopefully it'll be the Franchise Innovation Group. But if not, find a trusted partner who can help you, enter into the muddy waters that are franchising. And if you do that and you do it properly, you can build an empire. You can build your dream. And when you do that, you're taking your dream and you're allowing it to grow across a region, across the country. And at the end of the day, the reason why I'm in this is not just for financial gain. It's about increasing entrepreneurship in America and throughout the world. And that's where I think the power of franchising is. It's about building something that's bigger than yourself. So I thank you for the time today, and I wish you all the best in terms of the development of your franchise system, and wish you the most success. Thank you.